One advisory firm has predicted the return of low-level load shedding in the new year. Cresco says load shedding may return as early as January and remain at low levels until the end of 2028. We have heard from Eskom chairman Mteto Nyati, who told ITWeb that load shedding in 2025 was unlikely. And that statement echoed its medium-term system adequacy outlook for 25 to 29, that the lights will remain on over the period. So let's try and see what's what here. Head of the Energy Secretariat in the Office of the Chief Executive Officer at the South African National Energy Development Institute, Professor Sam Mamphweli, is with us, and Chris Yelland, who is the Managing Director of EE Business Intelligence, also joins me now. Thank you to the both of you for your time this morning. Really do appreciate it. So just maybe as an opener, just give us your assessment based on, and I believe both of you have seen this particular report which forecasts the possibility of load shedding. There are some caveats involved in that, but just at the outset, weighing that up against the commitments and the undertakings that Eskom has made, that there will be energy stability. Of course, that relates to the energy availability factor having gone up. We'll get to the details in a moment, but just give us a broad strokes view. Prof. Mamphweli, maybe we start with you. Good morning to the pair of you, by the way, and thanks for your time.
Good morning, Iman and the viewers. I tend to disagree with the report that load shedding might return. I tend to agree with Eskom on their analysis, and that is based on a number of factors. One, I've been working closely with Eskom and other parties, looking at the Eskom system for quite a long time. As things stand, I'm busy with the review of the IRP 2024, where the system adequacy numbers are also contained in that particular document. I'm reviewing that on behalf of government, obviously. And if you look at the projected EAF that is being provided by Eskom after they looked at various factors, including the current performance of the coal fleet, and many other factors, it's looking very, very good. It's on the upside of things. So I don't seem to agree that load shedding might return. However, I need to indicate that there are various other factors, that, such as your breakdowns, that are not highly predictable.
All right, and I'll circle back to the concept of sort of unplanned or unforecasted disruptions that could change the picture with you, Dr. Mamphweli, in just a moment. Chris?
Yeah, look, I must say that we need to listen to what Eskom is saying very carefully, and we also need to listen to what the minister is saying very carefully. Both Eskom and the minister have said they are not yet ready to declare load shedding over. And this means that there is always a possibility of load shedding. We should not be talking about this in absolute terms, but we should be talking about it in terms of probability and the statistical probabilities of these things happening. I would agree with Professor Samson that the probabilities are low, but nobody can predict the future, not me, not Eskom, not the chairman of Eskom, and not the minister. It depends on a lot of unknown factors, as Samson has indicated. And, the minister said he's not ready yet to call an end, to say categorically that load shedding has come to an end, because work is still undergoing, and this work is running very late at the moment on Medupi unit number 2, which is still down after a year, should have been up 6 months ago. Kusile unit number 6 is still not commissioned, still not in commercial service yet. Kusile units 1, 2, and 3 have to go off in sequence for about 4 weeks, 5 weeks each, in order to put back in place flue gas desulfurization plant. And Medupi unit number 4 is still not complete. This is the one that had a hydrogen explosion. And so that there's still a lot of unknown factors. Now, look, there is a plan to bring all of these to conclusion, but until they are brought to conclusion, I think it is premature to say that load shedding is over. And I think we do need to keep an open mind that there is a probability, even though it may be a low probability, that we may experience load shedding in the future.
All right, so let's qualify it then, Prof. Mamphweli. What Cresco has put forward is the assumption around the availability of Eskom's generation plant sort of staying stable at an annual average of 63%. For the week ended December the 1st, the EAF dipped under 60% after 7 consecutive weeks on that level. And I'm reading from the Business Day article, which is who they gave the interview to. And then the average for the year to that date was 60.12, which was also an improvement of almost 6 percentage points from the previous year's average. But the point that they're making, that if it doesn't live up to or hit that mark of 63% and continues to dip lower, then that heightens the probability of disruptions to electricity supply. So I'd love you to put your, statistical sort of hat on. I mean, well, you do it anyway. That's what you do every single day. And talk to us about whether that premise around their performance and dipping beneath that threshold is a credible enough factor to bring into the mix, which could heighten the probability of even low-level load shedding.
Yeah, and I'll pick up from where Chris left off, because that's the credible kind of data that he has provided. So we have a number of units that will come back to life, as Chris has indicated, and that will then improve the energy availability factor of the coal fleet. That's the one thing why I'm saying chances of load shedding coming back are very, very, very slim. Yes, I agree with Chris that we cannot declare load shedding over. And statistically, for us to declare load shedding over, in engineering terms, the energy availability factor of the coal fleet should be sitting at 70%. And if you look at the predictions that Eskom has provided in the IRP process, they've provided these same predictions that it will dip a little bit, but just below 60%, and then it will pick up, as these units come on board, the ones that Chris has alluded to. That's one thing. The other thing is some of the predictions around the solar energy, rooftop solar PV. What Eskom has provided based on the historical data is that we'll have an average of 900 megawatts of solar PV coming on board, both on rooftop solar PV in households and business, and also in business on the business side of things. So if you look at that also gives Eskom some kind of relief in terms of the electricity demand. So overall, if you look at the demand and supply and the predictions in terms of the demand and supply going into the new year, the outlook is looking very, very good. Yes, there are those units that still need to come, and if those units come to life, in terms of their planned timelines, then we'll be even sitting at a much, much better situation. Let me just give you this snapshot, which I'm sure Chris may have also seen in the IRP. By around mid next year, the EAF will be sitting at about 64-65%. That's very close to where we want it to be for us to be able to declare load shedding over. And I agree, the minister cannot declare load shedding over, Eskom cannot declare load shedding over until the energy availability factor reaches 70% or above. And that is the current situation that we have. Yes, we might have other challenges like other outages, unplanned outages, that we cannot predict, especially when we start to go into the rainy season, January, February, when the rain start to pick up in Limpopo and Mpumalanga, where we've got these most of these power stations. That may also have some kind of impact on both the pace and scale in which Eskom can do their proper regular maintenance going forward. But I'm very much confident that we can't necessarily say in absolute terms that load shedding will return. We can say that there are those external uncertainties that are not in that government or ESCOM is not in control of.
Chris, you can come in on there, and what I'd love for you to do is, because, as viewers, for example, it's very hard to separate some of this really technical language and a number of different concepts that relate to the provision of electricity when we put the switch on. So what should South Africans be listening for? Prof. Mamphweli talked about us needing to reach that energy availability factor of 70%, and if we continue on an upward trajectory, we're around 63.1% now, and if we continue to hit that mark consistently every single month and maybe even exceed it, I think actually Prof said between 64 and 65. To just clarify me if I'm wrong. Is that what we should be listening for? That as we creep towards 70%, the more the likelihood of us not facing the probability of a load shedding increases? Chris, that's for you. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I must say that I think Samson and I are both on the same page. I do think the EAF is a very important indicator because it does indicate, the level of availability from Eskom's fleet. And I think the Eskom's ending of load shedding is, of course, premised on their own program, their program of return to service of these units that I referred to. And I'm optimistic, as Samson is, that they will return to service, and this will actually be a very positive boost to the availability and therefore the reduction of the probability of load shedding. The other factors that are, make me also positive are that there is now a significant pipeline of fairly large renewable energy, wind and solar PV and battery energy storage projects. It takes 3 years to bring these projects to fruition from first starting. And people have been putting marbles into the pipe now for the last 3 years. And they're starting to pop out the other end of the pipe now with regular frequency. Announcements are made regularly in this regard. And so this pipeline of projects is coming to the grid, and it is going to be happening more and more often, in the year ahead. So not only on Eskom's side am I positive that they are bringing a return to service of another number of units, but also, on the private sector contributing very positively to this. On the downside, there's always the probability of some or other natural disaster, a number of units tripping out, a fire. We've seen the fire at Matla this last week, knocked out 2 units at Matla, one, as a result of the damage, the other as a precautionary measure. But in the end, 2 units were taken out of service. So it could be 2 units out, it could be 5 units out. In the past, we've had this happen. It's no saying that we're not going to have it in the future, but I think the probability is getting less. And with the additional units coming on stream and the private sector, I agree with the analysis that I think the probability of load shedding in the next year is quite low, but I'm not going to stick my neck out and say it's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, we can't deal in absolutes, especially when a lot of, what's responsible for our reality is not within our control or not within Eskom's control exclusively. And as you've just said, Chris, it is that convergence between the IRP, the independent power producers or renewable energy, plus Eskom's return to health in the mix that is creating a scenario that looks a little bit stronger for us as South Africa in terms of energy provision. Prof. Mamphweli, you also hinted at some of the, things, force majeures, I suppose, that might affect and could affect Eskom's performance and the output. Do you want to share any other specifics that us as the public should also be looking at as warning signs or red lights going off that could compromise Eskom's performance in future?
Yeah, as things stand, we're looking more on the force majeure kind of things, where you have issues around the weather conditions. We're sitting in a very difficult position where we have extreme weather conditions due to climate change, and that obviously affects any power utility around the world. So that is the biggest risk. Going back to looking at the performance of the coal fleet and the future projections, we have seen that in the past, when Eskom was fixing this coal fleet, they would fix one unit here and then another unit would break down somewhere else, or the same unit, when it gets returned to service, it will break down because of the unreliability nature of the kind of service that they were doing. But now the maintenance program has become more robust. They are doing a lot of more renewal of the various systems. There were a lot of environmental aspects. Chris has alluded to some of the units having to be retrofitted with emission abatement technologies. And those, alongside the water issues that Eskom had. I mean, I've been to various Eskom power stations, and during the time when load shedding was still very, very intense, and saw some of the problems on the environmental side, compliance side of things. And Eskom has done quite a lot of good work in terms of the environmental compliance side of things. That is one of the things that we never really looked into in the past, because we had a number of units that were classified as having broken down, only to find that it was basically issues around environmental compliance.
Yeah.
Now, the issues around the big projects, that is also coming up very strongly from the private sector investment. And we thank the private sector really for coming on board in terms of this. Because if you look at the draft IRP, the projection is about somewhere in the region of 18 gigawatts of renewable energy, wind and solar, that will be coming from the private sector side of things between the next 2 to 3 years, like Chris has indicated. And these are projects that have got the grid connection, that have got sites and all the licenses that we got from the National Energy Regulator. So it's looking good, even though we can't explicitly say load shedding is over.
Chris, I'm going to give you the last very quick bite at this. You know, we remember the deratorisms. This, Eskom cannot be fixed. Basically, the doomsday scenarios around Eskom and all of the other problems. I had a conversation with Nyathi Mteto, the chair of Eskom, who was talking about the turnaround and the strong leadership that has really resulted in that, because this has been teamwork on the part of Eskom, the board, and those who are in operations as well. What do you say about the winds of change at Eskom?
Firstly, to say that I indicated about 2.5 years ago now that if South Africa Incorporated does the right thing, we can end load shedding in 2 years. I actually put a plan on the table that said exactly that: end load shedding in 2 years. And we have ended load shedding in 2 years largely. And I think we have done the right thing for an extended period of time. And I acknowledge the excellent work that Eskom has done, but I also acknowledge the work that the president has done in putting the plan together by appointing a new Minister of Electricity who performed extremely well, subsequently promoted to Minister of Energy and Electricity. He put together NECOM, brought in the private sector, and there's been a lot of work done by NECOM, in addition, of course, to the work done by Eskom. So I think this is a big team effort. It's not just an Eskom effort. Eskom have done well, but I think we need to acknowledge the political and business and private sector and Eskom role players, and including the work done by Seredi and Samson's team. I think it's a great effort, and it shows what can be done with focused commitment to deal with a problem.
Yeah, now let's bring similar brains to the city of Johannesburg, so I don't have to go home to no power and no water again. But that's just my private little pet peeve. Let me not say too much about that. It's all about the future of Eskom, and you've heard the picture from both our experts, Chris Yelland and Dr. Sam Mamphweli. Thank you both for your time and your analysis. Really do appreciate it.